I'm still a little bit lost in the woods when it comes to some of the macro. I think Marta and James' takes there help clear up some of it. We probably are going to get a cut, but what it means for bonds and the dollar, I'm still unclear. However, the dollar move that shifted, as you see there, the dollar sign symbol closer to the green on that fringe between yellow and green is on top of my mind today as the dollar is firmed up again. Now, the question is what that means for bonds. Usually when the dollar is firming up, it means yields are firming up with it, which doesn't really look like a strong message about cuts. But recall that when the Fed started their cutting campaign a couple of years ago, it actually led to higher yields. And that's that kind of convexity, the butterfly effect of what happens if you cut while the economy's strong. So maybe we get higher dollar and maybe we get higher yields again as the Fed starts cutting. That means I'll be watching bonds pretty closely. As you can see, that little Fed symbol there for my bonds close to the red. That's still yellow, but inching towards red because it looks like maybe bonds want to break down. Not quite yet. My question to Charlie here is what that's going to mean for some of the Momo stuff because the tech trade's getting dinged up, Mr. Charles Moon, coach of Prosper Trading Academy. What do you think about the session here today, Charlie?
Pretty interesting. Quite honestly, going into the weekend, I actually thought the news was bullish, especially for retail stocks and more of the smaller caps that would have to loan at the higher interest rates. But then I totally forgot that the U.S. would have to pay back all of that money, and certainly the reaction today was very negative. So it's good to see how resilient the market is once again. Let's not forget we made new all-time, never seen before in the history of mankind highs on Thursday in the
True.
SPY. So we're not at any real danger point from a technical standpoint, from a pricing standpoint. But it is interesting that today was the first day the Qs were underneath the 50 SMA since I believe May or April. So, there's definitely some weakness. We saw the signal in Nvidia. They came within a penny on their earnings day of their all-time high price and dropped like a rock. AVGO, which has been extremely resilient, was down, quite a bit on Friday and opened down today just to finish barely positive. So it's kind of interesting to see how tech is developing on this tariff news, at least for the short term.
Yeah, Nvidia right at 170. It managed to hold that 170.74 as we just rang the bell. It looks like an area that should find some support. I mean, I'm looking at a gap from 164 up to 170 from back in late July that looks to, or late June, that looks to me that kind of gap up there to where we are like something that should hold some support.
Yeah, and if it doesn't, then I see it breaking down. And I know this is going to sound funny, but I see this actually breaking down pretty hard to the 155 price level. I
Oof.
think Nvidia just closed underneath their 50 simple moving average. And I think the last time they did that, it was on May 1st. So again, you're just starting to see a little bit more cracks in the dam. We're not flooding just yet, but the market. We saw this leading into the week, leading into Jackson Hole, where there was a lot of shaky trading in some of the more stronger performing names, stronger trending names. Maybe this is a bit of a rotation out of the semis and into cloud. Cloud was such a good performer on earnings with Mongo and Snowflake. Maybe that's part of the reason we're seeing a little bit more weakness in some segments of tech and strength in
That's
others. But
interesting.
it's a weird dynamic to see Nvidia, find a top and then really react negative over these last few days.
Yeah, I didn't realize that. I'm looking at CLOU here. I didn't realize that cloud has this now kind of full month trend to the upside. Got hit today too, but to your point, a little bit better on that intermediate term in the last month. Whereas if I flip back over to SMH, to your point, boy, you really got to hope these things hold, whether it's semis as a group or NVIDIA too. What about the bounce in Bitcoin and Master today, Charles? Does that help alleviate some of the nervousness maybe over the past week in coins in the coin related world?
Again, I think the last time we talked about this, I had pointed out there's been a bit of a rotation from Bitcoin holders into more Ethereum and some of the altcoins. But we've seen a little bit more progressive weakness there. Bitcoin came roaring back today, and again, with at least with me with crypto, sometimes there's no rhyme or reason. Sometimes trend
Yeah.
is sustaining, and then all of a sudden it breaks trend and goes on a multi-day tear, and it'll recover what it lost, in just a few days, in just a few hours, and vice versa. So, for me with crypto, it's always a short term, you know, um, momentum play. I actually like the miners a little bit more than MSTR. If you
Okay, you
look
got a
at
ticker
stocks
for
like,
me?
oh, IREN,
Okay.
IREN is one
Oh,
of my
that's the
favorites
popular
right
one.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh man,
they've been
big bullish
crushing,
engulfing candle today.
and
Is
Hut
that what
is
that
another
is?
one as well.
What's the other one, Charlie?
Hut, HUT.
Oh yeah, yeah, I know Hut. Yep.
Yeah, so these two have been the standouts. I know a lot of people like Mara and Riot, but these are the two that I've been watching really closely. There's a
Those are good looking
sneaky one
charts.
that actually has coverage from JP Morgan called Cypher. That's CIFR. And that's another one that's starting to creep up as well. But, like I said,
Wow.
it just seems like there's a rotation and the rotations having rotations. And this is where it's difficult for like the retail traders to try and play catch up all the time in the market, because trading at these all-time highs, anytime there's news, there's a surprise. It's a very, pretty volatile reaction. It's not typical to see the Qs open up, down 1.5%, but we've seen it here and there as of late, and that's just something we just got to have to trade around in this really bullish market overall.
Yeah, those are pretty good names there to watch. The miners. I gotta say, those are some of the best looking charts on the market. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know what the timing is about, but to your point with crypto, sometimes it doesn't have a rhyme or a reason. I mean, I know that some of those kind of hot names. I know IREN obviously was like a major Momo name, but the fact those all had monster days today, while the market is down, I feel like gives a little hope for at least one angle of the crypto stuff for now, because those are pretty decent looking charts.
Yeah, the common denominator is actually AI. That's something that they all have in common, and that's
I
obviously
see.
been
Okay.
the key word here for the last 2 years. But yeah, those are the
Nice.
standouts, and it's specifically because of the ties to AI.
That's why I love you. Always give me some names that I missed, the juicy stuff to watch. Charlie, you the man. Thanks for jumping on.
Thanks for having me, man.
Appreciate it.